here at St Cecilia's College here in Derry, and I am here to talk about Letting Your Light Shine, an article for the Net, which was done for November. At St Cecilia's College we are blessed with such inspirational young girls from the city, and I shared some inspirational stories from our young students here at the school. In particular, some of our sporting students and musical students, as well as we at St Cecilia's pride ourselves on looking at the good of our girls and awarding them accordingly. St Cecilia's is a very kind and pastoral school, and we often award some of our girls the C badge for kindness, and we awarded two of our lovely Year 10 students this year, Mia McDade and Rachel Donaghy, for their lovely act of kindness within the school community. Two of our young girls are aspiring footballers, and we shared their story on this edition as well, talking about how committed they are to their sport within the school and outside of school, and they spend a lot of their free time travelling to Jordanstown and putting in a lot of time and energy as well as their schoolwork to strengthen their sporting skills. So we shared that story as well. Recently the school was awarded the Silver Award for Making a Difference School of the Year, and we were so proud of this accolade within the school, and it just goes to show how much we do appreciate everything that our young people achieve, both academically and pastorally within their life at St Cecilia's College. So we just shared some of these stories during this really difficult time as we are in the middle of this pandemic, and we just wanted to share the fact that our young people are still striving to be good and to be good to themselves and others within their community and within their school.
Hi, my name is Peter Grant.
My name is John Joseph.
Hi, my name's Sarah Sunburn.
Hello, my name is Holly Bristol.
And my name's Oisin O'Hara.
My name's Gemma Gallagher.
And I'm here to talk to Bishop Donal.
And I'm here to talk to Bishop Donal.
And I'm here to chat to Bishop Donal.
And I'm here to talk with Bishop Donal.
And I'm here today to talk to Bishop Donal.
Greetings to you from St Cecilia's College in Derry. My name is Donal McKeown. I'm Bishop of the Diocese of Derry, have been for this past 6.5 years. And I'm here with 6 of our young people who've been writing for the Net newspaper, which is committed to one thing only, to spreading good news about God in terms of events that are happening in the Diocese of Derry. And all of these 6 young people here, we have Holly, we have Peter, we have John, we have Zara, we have Gemma, and we have Oisin. They've all written for the most recent edition, the November edition 2020, about a number of things that are important to them, particularly the young Saint Carla Wakutis, coping with the pandemic and the broad area of the church and young people. So we're going to have a conversation here, and we'll see where it takes us. But I hope you can have a really good conversation and you can enjoy meeting some of these wonderful young people who have a lot to say, good things to say, and hard questions to ask. And when I was teaching myself, I worked on one basis, that it was always better to be unhappy with the right questions than happy with the wrong answers. So, who's going to lead us off? Holly, have you something that you wanted to comment on, or some experience you've had recently you want to share, or a question you wanted to ask?
In relation to Carlo, was it? Yeah, well, I know that Carlo believed that the Eucharist was the centre to our lives, and he made the centre to his, so how do we make it to ours?
Well, I think Carla Wakutis is certainly a young figure who seems to have grabbed the imagination of a generation. Died about 15 years ago at the age of, I think, 15 of cancer, but had a real passion, A, for computers, for websites and so on, and B, a committed relationship with Jesus and the Eucharist. In fact, the strange thing about Carlo is that his parents were not big churchgoers, and it was his discovery of faith, which I think he picked up from his Polish nanny, or the person who looked after him when he was growing up. He really developed a passion not just for the Eucharist, he had a passion for Jesus and the message of Jesus, and then the sacrament, the way Jesus touches all of who we are, not just our heads with a message about love your neighbour, but actually he touches your body. He said that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, that our bodies will be raised up on the last day. So I think Carlo, as a young person, a teenager, was fascinated by this dream that God had for everybody, whatever our stage in life. And I think he invited your generation in your way to experience that beauty of who you are. And the fact that Jesus wants to communicate himself to all of who you are, not just in thoughts, but to become part of your body, which is an absolutely startling, amazing thing. So I suppose it's not surprising when Jesus talked about the Eucharist in the 6th chapter of St. John's Gospel, talking about eating his flesh and drinking his blood. Many of his followers walked away. This is intolerable language, they said. And it's still intolerable language for many people. And yet young Carlo was fired by that love of Jesus and that amazing belief in the sacrament of Christ's death on the cross becoming part of our bodies. That is an amazing belief. And we really have to say, yeah, I accept that, or no, this is intolerable language, which is exactly how some disciples responded in Jesus' time. But it's a fascinating story, and it's wonderful to see it in the 21st century, somebody being full of a fire for that belief in the power of Jesus to transform who we are and who our bodies are. Anybody else, any other comments?
I have a question. What would you think Carlo Acutis could teach us as young people? Is like any specific things we could take away from, how he acted, how he lived his life?
Well, I think what I was struck about in how he lived his life was he developed a passion for something and followed that. And I think that's what all the great saints have done. I know some of you are doing ANFLRE and looking at the Irish monks, for example. They had a passion for something. And in many ways, this word discernment that Pope Francis talks about is sensing what is it deep down in your heart that burns within you, what really fires you. Art, whatever it happens to be. What is it? And that's what your sanctity, Oisín, will come out of you being true to who you are, discovering the gifts that God has given you, allowing them to flourish. So it's not a question of saying, what can I do, that Carlo did. He followed the Spirit of God where it was leading him. And he'd say, be true to yourself. Dream of being a wonderful person. Ask for the grace to discover where your gifts and talents are. Well, I'm sure all of your parents had to discover, yeah, I just love him or I just love her. That doesn't come by calculations. It comes from knowing deep down what's in your heart. And I think those who are not called to marriage have to do the same thing. How can I leave the world a better place using the gifts that God has given me and becoming as full as possible who I'm called to be? He became who he was called to be at the age of 15. For the rest of us, it takes a lot longer. But to your own self be true, because God is deep down in your heart calling you to be something wonderful. And don't stunt that. Don't be unfaithful to that call. Anything else that struck anybody?
I think today, people, like especially youth, can be pulled away from their faith or tested from their faith. And I think in a way, Carlo's story has shocked a lot of young people today, because most people are like, how did I get this connection? They look for answers, but I feel it's because they've been dragged away from their faith. Because I think most young people have a persona around their faith nowadays, and I think lots of things like social media and stereotyping can pull people away from their faith. But in ways, I really think that Carlo's story is there's something about it that's so inspirational as a young person. For me to read it, it shows me that there's still a lot of places God can be where you don't see him. But what I would like to see more of would be the youth showing more interest and in like just interest in their faith, which I feel like has faded, which is a pity. But I really think that Carlo's story has like really, people have really, like the youth have really taken it in and have looked at me like, this is absolutely amazing. Like this young wee boy at 15's life was absolutely changed by the Eucharist and the connection, which was really nice to see, because I seen a lot of youth then turn and look at him as like somebody to look up to, and that it's really brought young people more into their faith, which is just good to see.
Does that ring bells with anybody?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Okay. I mean, you have a youth group in the Sarah Malabar Church of young people who support one another.
Yeah, so it's not only a youth group, we have catechesis classes. So I'm a teacher in one of the catechesis classes. I teach year 11s, and you know, we're the elder kids teach the younger kids as it is, you know, and it's like we're not only like learning the faith by ourselves, we're like trying to pass on the faith to the younger kids as well. Like so it's always like in a sort of way a baton race, like you're passing the baton on to someone else, and that's like the faith you pass on the baton. And in our case, as young people, as in our young group, we're trying to pass the baton on to the younger kids who are 5-6 years younger than us. You know, the same faith that we got from kids that were older than us, our parents, and so on and so forth. So,
and they will listen to it from people of their own generation more than from old codgers like myself. I mean, they say, do you believe on that?
Yeah.
Does that mean something to you? I mean, you can influence one another.
I can definitely relate to you, because I go to a fifth youth group to Search up in the Iona Business Centre, and I really do think that the youth and talking to each other about faith is like so lovely, because it just, I think you learn a lot, and there's like this presence when you go to a faith-based youth group. It's different, like there's something so peaceful about it, and it's really nice.
And you were facing challenges that I don't face.
Yeah.
You know, but you're sharing what God, what grace, what the Eucharist, what prayer means to all the pain and all the struggles and all the dreams that you have. And it's important that young people can be together to share that journey.
I think as well, through the story of Carlo Acutis, it kind of gives young people belief in themselves that they can actually make a difference. Because I think especially nowadays, young people have kind of been branded, oh, sure, like they're just young, like they're too wee, or they don't know enough. And then hearing this, that he had such profound impact on like basically the whole world, it kind of makes you think, he was so young, I'm young too, I can make an impact as well.
Wonderful.
I find he was a great role model in the way he acted and the way he used other things that he was interested in to help with his faith, like his interest with computers, leading him to make that website and such. I thought that was a great way of using, like another skill that he had to increase his faith as well.
Like it was kind of like a new era for the Catholic Church. It was like it was a new era whenever Carlos kind of wrote down on his website, like typing all about God and everything, like, which kind of hit the young people, and he kind of inspired them to think that, yeah, I can do that, I can be like him, and that's what kind of inspired us.
And I'm surprised too, I mean, in Derry here, there's that Sister Claire Crockett, who's become quite well known, who died in her early 30s, and who had been a teenager, but with all sorts of wild plans and great hopes, and yet she had this encounter with God. And I'm sort of wondering at the present time, maybe I'm misreading the situation, the elections in America, but I was a teenager in the 60s, which is a long time ago, and in many ways the sexual revolution was starting then. I'm wondering, are we actually getting to a stage where that wave is beginning to run into the sand? You're recognizing that self-harm and addiction and suicide is a huge price that many people are paying for having a great choice. And I sense there are little nests of rebels like yourselves who say there must be something better, and who are fired by the like of Carlo Acutis. or Claire Crockett. Wanting life must be better than just acting the maggot. And you have your art, and you have your writing, and you have your media, and you have your expectations from your career, and all of those things. Do you sense that our young people actually hungering for something good and something beautiful?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Mhm.
And then they're nearly ashamed to admit that they do have faith, some people, and they nearly keep it nearly just as their core and they don't spread it,
Yeah.
you know.
And I know Search would have a strong emphasis on enabling young people
Yeah.
to share the pain that many of them have in their lives.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Hurt or neglect or just loneliness or lack of expectations.
Mhm.
And I think having little groups where you can say, yeah, I do believe in God. Whether it's going to World Youth Day coming up in a few years in Lisbon, or whether it's in a project you're doing, it's not be ashamed to say, I struggle with the Eucharist, or I struggle with confessions, but I believe God's calling me to be a hero, to make the world a different place rather than always a closet. You know.
Well, like I remember, so I started doing Holy Hours just I don't know, around 6-7 weeks ago, and I think it was just 2 weeks ago. I was at the church, and just in front of the Holy Eucharist, you know, in adoration. And to be honest, I was like starting to fall asleep. It's been a long day after school. It's a Friday, 5 o'clock, just tired all out. And an old man comes up and he's like, "Thank you." He just says thank you. I'm just surprised. I'm like, why is he saying thank you to me? And then I just realized, all right, I'm like one of the only, well, like I'm the only young person in the entire chapel, like, you know. So it surprised me. Like there's very few young people that are there, but there can be more. And like especially whenever you're just at the Eucharist and like you're just seeing Jesus there, like what, in bread, but like, you know he's there, and it's like something totally different in that sense. And I guess that's what inspired Carlo Acutis as well.
Yeah.
In that sense.
You can feel the presence of God there. You really can. Like usually for me, if I sit in front of the likes of a Mary statue, I feel like so at peace. Like it's a completely different feeling that I just can't describe at all. And I feel like Carlo got that peace through the Eucharist, which to me kind of makes me think then there's so many young people that can probably relate to him, but are so like, as you said, like inward about it, and they're like very, very private about their faith. And I think that there's a difference then that the young people could probably make, and I think that Carlo made that difference. Like he spoke out and he was like, hey, this is like, I have an unbelievable like connection with the Eucharist, like it's, and he just shared it, and to me it was just powerful because like you just wouldn't get that, especially I don't think in Derry. It wouldn't be very popular to do stuff like that. So I think that Carlo then really like is teaching like through his story, it's taught lots of people to like show what faith can actually do and like how powerful it can really be.
In responding to the real situations of Gemma's life, or Sarah's life, or what it is, it speaks to you
Yeah.
as to where you are. It's not a question just to be learning from Carlo, it's just learning to be with the Lord who loves you. And Jesus had one thing in mind, to heal. He wanted to heal people, and there is so much hurt or brokenness or distress, and you know that from your peers. A lot of young people are suffering. What sorts of things? Is it addiction, or is it difficulty in forgiving themselves, or is it sense of meaninglessness? Or
I think they have all the answers, but they don't.
Yep.
Like, I think nowadays people are like, oh no, I'm grand, nothing annoys me, and then they'll go home later and just crumble. I think everything now is very hidden behind a mask because it's just literally, but the different type. anti-global pandemic type of issue. It's like, so literally, I don't ask.
How's the pandemic affected your lives? I know it, for those of you who are in school, it's affected it that way, but has there been any other deeper
I think
effects?
kind of isolation with others because of this pandemic. Even though you can socially talk to them on your phone, like, you can't physically talk to them, and it kind of feels like you are low, but at the same time you're not, because you've like such as Skype, all these things like that.
You
can
can't
talk
high
to.
five on Skype.
You can high five on Skype. But we just give them a simple wave. But yeah, you do find a bit of isolation once you're at home.
I think during the pandemic, people have experienced faith in a different way. With not being able to go to church, I think a lot more people praying with services and so on webcams.
Yeah.
Online, through TV, laptop, whatever, iPhone, tablet.
Literally anything.
Kind of brought me closer because there's just that many ways to access it, and then I
Yeah.
found myself having more time to put into watching the masses and such, and that helped me with the isolation of the pandemic and the like. Because as much as I could still talk to my friends, I couldn't really interact with them properly, and the masses helped me get over that isolation and overcome it.
I think certainly we have a big tradition, or a series of traditions in the Catholic Church, of things that we can do other than having to be in a church singing and listening to a sermon.
Yeah.
The Divine Mercy Chaplet, or the Stations of the Cross, or the Angelus, or the Rosary, or Exposition. All of those things, I think, came into their own, and some people perhaps experienced them in a way that they hadn't known them before. And we tried, certainly from the cathedral, to give a regular pattern. Guaranteed at 3 o'clock every day you'd have this, or 12 o'clock you'd have that, or and some people would have found that, say, night prayer finishing at 9 o'clock at night, for many families with younger children, it's a nice way to wind down.
Yeah.
Do you know, during the pandemic, we missed out on big feast days and like Easter, the big celebration of Easter, and what was it like for you to celebrate Mass in front of a virtual audience?
That was difficult. The Lord be with you. And there was nobody there, or maybe there was one person there. It certainly was difficult, but I think what we tried to do was say, all I can see is a little red light, but there are thousands there behind it, and my job is to try and engage with them. And a second thing, from a priest's perspective, it's not my job to say Mass, it's my job to pray what I'm doing. And I know if I'm concentrating as well as I can on making this a prayerful time for me, then perhaps the others who are partaking through the multimedia and so on, they will experience some of that prayerfulness. If I become a showman, then young people are best at knowing a fake. So it was difficult. It was good to get back to a real congregation. And I know at the present time it's difficult for those in the Republic, where the parish, you can't access the parish because we are a sacramental people. We're not just listening to words or nice music or saying, he preaches for 10 minutes, we'll put the kettle on. I think being together is important, and inspiring younger ones like you do, John, in your group.
Well, just about that, I think if I can just digress a little bit, it was back to the Carlo Acutis thing, as you said. He was influenced by his Polish nanny. So I think there is a need for that sort of an adult figure. So especially parents, I think parents, a lot of parents of many young people today have fallen away from the faith themselves. So even if you tell their children, why not try our faith, or why not come and pray? They're going to ask the question, well, my parents aren't praying, so why should I?
Yeah.
I think what we've tried to be aware of in church is that there should be a beauty when we pray. And obviously, art's an important thing for you, Gemma. Would you talk a little bit about, would you bring forward that piece that you did? Would you go and get it for us and maybe explain it for us and let the camera see it? I think we have all sorts of ways of expressing that beauty, whether it's music or silence, whether it's architecture or liturgy. what inspired you to do this, or
See, this was an idea when we were in lockdown, say the second month. So what inspired me to do this was my daddy, who's called Martin, would have like an unbelievable faith. Like he would get up, go to mass every morning when he could. Like I mean every single morning, maybe again go to mass that night. And for my daddy, not going to mass during this lockdown was really hard for him. Though it really tested him in ways. And because our house would be like so strong in their faith, I felt that it was just something that we always done. Like we were always at mass and we were always practicing our faith every week. Like there was not a day where we wouldn't have said prayers. And for lockdown to happen, I think it just kind of was like, faith was like a red flag at the minute because we couldn't get out to practice it. But I remember my daddy walked in one day and he was all, Gemma. I was all, what is it, Daddy? I was like, what is he going to ask me? And then I was all, what? And he was all, will you pin something for me? And I was like, aye, sure, what is it? And he was all, I really want a big canvas for the kitchen. And I was like, okay, what do you mean? What is it? And I just knew on my head, I was like, it's going to be something we got on it. And then it was all, will you do me the Last Supper? And I was like, that's no problem. So I thought this was a good interpretation of God because I put him in the centre with his gold halo. So I did, and I just thought it was a really pretty way to present him. And then, as you can see, there's all the disciples and stuff. And then I did this red one for Judas because, in a way, I think lockdown either brought you closer to your faith or just completely you fell away from it. And I put him down at the right hand corner, and you can see he's like grasping out, but in a way he was falling away. So there's why I made Judas down at the bottom right, because he's almost out of the picture. And then I think these ones are so like involved in faith, and they're just fisting to God, and there's like, I just thought that Judas was a very good representation that I can nearly fall out of the photo, because I think Judas was struggling like some people during lockdown with their faith, and they were questioning God, being like, why would you do this to us? No, why is this happening? Whereas all other people that were using lockdown as a positive way were like looking to God and being like, well, you've obviously done this for a reason, and you've done this to protect us in whatever way. And I think that it was powerful. The Last Supper was meant to be chosen to be drawn.
and it's people together,
Yeah.
fascinated
Yeah.
by Jesus. He's in the centre. Their stories are different. They're coming from different places, they're different backgrounds, and yet he holds their diversity together, which maybe is a very good picture of that you've grasped it for a young person. It's wonderful how you've been able to do this and get the movement into it. That the grace of God is working when people come together. Because it must be very lonely for some of your peers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can cope, but I imagine there must be others who find it very difficult to cope. For him, sport maybe was important, or
Yeah, because whenever I found, like, whenever they said no sport, I was thinking, what can I do? I only do sport, what could I do? Then I decided then, like, listen, why not just take up other hobbies such as writing for the net, like this year, and kind of just doing some of the schoolwork just to keep me occupied, and even help my dad farming as well, like, keep myself occupied, and keep me going, like sport, because I couldn't do sport at all.
yes, it's taking whatever circumstances come at us and say, I'm going to make the most of these, rather than just saying, oh, this is terrible, this is awful. You know,
Yeah.
you're sort of saying, this is where we are,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
and we will make the most of it. As Karl Amakutis had to do, I developed leukemia. Okay, I'm going to make the most of my situation. I think we're not going to go back to the way we were. This has been too much of a crisis, not just for individuals, but I think just for the economy, for how we do education, for what we dream of being. What would any of you like to see as the changes that will be in society or be in church after this is over, which could be 6 months or 12 months or 2 years or whatever? What would you like to see as the best lessons we could learn from the pandemic? Anything that you would want in church to change? I mean, you were looking at the book on the church and young people. Anything you would want to see different
I think
that would respond to who you are and where you are?
I think that the online programs and everything's online masses and all too, I think it should stay. Because I know a lot of young people can't, say, get to Derry or travel,
Mhm.
so I think it reaches out wider
Mm-hmm.
and across the world too, I suppose, if they want to log in.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to see the online programs continue.
For formation of young people in the faith,
Yeah,
and not just for religious themed entertainment, but
yeah.
because you all seem keen to learn more about.
Yeah,
The
like
faith.
like Holly said, like the Pope John Paul on Instagram, like every Monday, like
Yes.
that has got a lot of people. Like it has.
Hundreds.
And we had the Alpha program,
Yeah.
Oh,
That's right.
and I think 32 of you did that, which was very good. And there's another one just started there last Monday, I think, as well.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I started to get involved, was through that, at the start of lockdown.
Just taking you seriously.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean that, it's taking you seriously rather than you're only maybe 16, 17-year-olds, or I mean, they'll grow up, we'll talk serious things to you. You want to be engaged in serious journeying now,
yeah.
not just at some stage in the future.
Do you know what else I got from the book? It was Exploring Christus Vivit. Was you know, you were mentioning about Sister Claire. She had a hunger for vocation, but she didn't know what that hunger was because she was so probably just she drowned with the fame. She was drowned in fame and success and all that. But the book emphasises on the element of risk and vocation, and I think a lot of young people fear that, and maybe they just overlook the term vocation and might just think of a job or a career. But is there anything maybe in your own experience, Bishop, that you could advise people or guide them? You know, how they look at or listen to their vocation, and maybe you know, how do they know that they have it?
Well, you were talking about adoration.
Yes.
I think it's in silence that we actually will discover what God is saying to us deep down in our hearts.
Yeah.
Because there's so much noise and activity and pressure and deadlines and all of that. That takes silence to do a painting. It takes to focus on that, and I think it's really only by being silent. And I know a number of young people who have decided, I want to spend my life in the service of Jesus. I would love other things, but this is what I feel I am being called to. And Pope John Paul II was the same. He had plans, and he discovered deep down, you know, having talked and having discerned and just knowing what made him happy deep down. And that's what discernment's about. So take your time. Don't be afraid of the awkward questions. If something really strikes you in a conversation or a book, wonder, why does that mean so much to me? There's the story of St. Ignatius of Loyola, who founded the Jesuits. And somebody said about him, he was a bit of a wild man, until one day in a battle he was kneecapped by a cannonball, which is perhaps slightly using a modern term for a medieval man. But when he was ill, he read, as he was recovering from his wounds, and he read lots of novels and so on, and he enjoyed them. And then he began to read Lives of Saints, and after a while he noticed, when he finished the novels, he left them down, and they left nothing for him. When he read the lives of some saints, it kept turning round inside him, and he began to discern that this is the real me. It's not being a hood, it's not being a soldier, it's not being a fighter, it's not being a guy who wants to show off. There's something else that's more serious in me. So that's what I think what discernment's about, Holly. It's finding out what it is that really makes you tick, that fires your imagination. And not to be afraid of believing that you can become something wonderful. Obviously, I'm not married. I have no family. I would love to have been married. But that was not my vocation. And I think it's discerning not just what do I fancy doing, but I'm saying God is calling me to be something. It might be to be a granny, it might be to be a famous artist, it doesn't matter. He's not calling me to be a granny, I can assure you. But it's discerning deep down what really makes your heart thrill, and trusting that and following that. Whether it's falling in love with somebody, whether it's choosing a career, or whether it's saying, yeah, but it's believing that God is calling you to be something wonderful, and not just, well, how do I pass the time, how do I have a bit of crack. No.
And because at this age it is hard because you're faced with choices
Yeah.
in paths. So I do know that's the thing people, it's a crisis, like a struggle with people at the minute.
You take one step at a time.
Yeah.
You make a choice, and it mightn't end up being the one you're going to end up with, but you learn from making the mistake or saying, no, now I realise that's not for me, something else is for me, and it just takes time.
Yeah. And I was just thinking about just next year, just around Corpus Christi.
Yeah.
You know, since we're talking about Carlo Quintus and all, it'd be nice to see a Eucharistic procession
Okay.
and Eucharistic during Corpus Christi.
Okay.
In Derry, it'd be like, you know, from the waterside to the city side, and then all the young people, and it'd be something different for Derry, I guess, after this big year.
I think we have to find things to draw people back to church. I think you're spot on there, because there is an element of pageantry in our faith that brings people together, say for Cemetery Sunday even, or whatever else. Okay, I think that we actually have got some wonderful young people here who've got a passion to discover more, to learn more, to do something beautiful with their lives. I thank you very much for taking time this afternoon to talk about these things. Please God, we can continue to journey on, and you're a blessing on your generation. Never be afraid of what you stand for, what you believe in. Never be afraid of admitting the failures that you have, and never doubt that Jesus loves you and wants you to be something wonderful, however long your life may last. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Archie. Thank you, Gemma. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, John. Thank you, Peter. And thank you, Holly. Thank you very much. God bless.